I love having kids.
Morning members, welcome to the June meeting of the Exmoor National Park Authority, which is of course our annual meeting. As it's our annual meeting, first item, please could I have nominations for the chair?
Could I propose that the microphones be made to work? By turning them on. Could I propose Mrs Davis, please?
Thank
Miss
you.
Davis, I should say.
Seconded by Susan Moore, thank you. Do I have any other nominations? No? That being the case, congratulations Andrea. Would you like to come and chair the meeting? Thank you.
Congratulations.
Hello and goodbye. I think I'm taking the smell of deep heat away from you. It's only when I sit down to people I realise, oh my god, I absolutely stink. I have no It's not that cheap.
Oh, you heard me.
Every time I go shopping, they can give me a tube of deep heat. Sorry, I'm going to sit next to you now. I'll go walk a bit now.
This is why we elected you chairman, isn't it? Get
back to the rest. Right. Thank you very much, and it is a great honour to be your chairman. And just for the benefit of, we have one new member who I'm going to welcome in a moment, but just for the benefit of you all, just to remind you, I do identify as the chairman, so we don't get all muddled about where we're going to, what phrasing we're going to use. I don't particularly like being called chair. So it is a great honour. We've got a lot to do. We've got a lot of challenges, mainly financial, and I think what I want to try and do is steer a very clean and efficient ship forward to make sure that the National Park carries on in the way it has been for all the years it's been here, and that we keep serving the people that we represent who live here, and indeed the wider community across the United Kingdom. So on that, can we have election of Deputy Chairman, please? I'd like to, it's been so helpful, nominate Robin, if I may, for the Chair. Oh, so happy with everybody second. Any other nominations? All those in favour? Thank you. Congratulations. Before we go on to apologies for absence, I'm going to welcome Richard Hopley. So Richard is the new representative from South Molton Rural, and he has been nominated by Devon County Council to sit on the board with us. And just yesterday, Richard and I had a very full day for member training.
Very interesting. A lot to take in. Just a steep learning curve.
So I'm sure you're welcome, Richard, and we look forward to working with you. It's a strange meeting today because we're going to go through all the appointments, but you'll get it. Apologies for absence. We have Mike Ellicott. Fran's gone a bit late. She's gone to the dentist, and I've just welcomed Richard. Declarations of interest. At this point, Richard, go around the room. Robin.
Nothing for me. No.
No.
No. Sorry.
And none for me either, thank you. Unusually, I've got no announcements, which I think is a good thing. And then item 6, minutes of the last meeting. So we need to approve the correct record, the minutes of the meeting of the authority held on the 6th of May. Jeremy, have to move? Thank you. Thank you, Mike. All those in favour? So we need to go through those now, any matters arising. So at this point, what I should do is go through Richard and then just sort of say if there's anything that you'd like us to items of accuracy only. Page 1. Page 2. Page 3. Oh, John. 2. Page 2. No.
Yes. I was just going to ask, it's about the medium-term financial plan and the revenue budget, and I was going to ask whether there's been any further development since we last discussed it a month ago.
There have.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, we've had some development. We've had the formal change control notice from DEFRA in respect of the grant. So that has confirmed the figures that were in my paper of the 6th of May. So we've had that. We are likely to get our first quarter's grant claim, which is about 25% of that in the next 10 days. That's pretty much the update since that last meeting.
Anything you want to ask Ben on that? Page 3, page 4, page 5. Everyone happy? Item 7, business emergency. Again, I have nothing. Public speaking, we have no members of the public with us. And then on to item 9, which is Exmoor active travel plan. Oh, there he is. Sorry, Dan. I can see you. You're behind the scenes down there. Dan, could you introduce yourself so Rich knows who you are, please?
Yeah, so Dan Barnett, Access and Recreation Manager for the National Park. So hopefully you've all had a chance to read the report that's been circulated. It's a thorough report produced in line with government good practice as best as possible given the rural location. As you have seen, it doesn't go into huge detail, it's more of a strategy document, but detailed schemes could follow as next steps potentially, and we have done some investigative work along those lines already with a few different ideas. I would say the most interesting parts really are the Chapter 4, the network plan and priorities, and Chapter 5, the delivery and next steps. The strategy, as you'll see in the document, breaks it all down into 11 key themes of potential future work, and some of those recommendations are kind of more normal public rights of way work that we can just gradually get done and build into normal work programmes, but most of it is much more substantial and would require additional or new resources to take it forward. Those might be forthcoming from Active Travel England, or they may not, or there may be other sources of funding that are suitable. I think, at the end of the day, supporting the recommendation of the paper today doesn't bind the authority to any new expenditure or specific schemes. So I suppose in that way it's quite uncontroversial. But I do hope that members can be enthusiastic about the plan and the possibilities within it, as they really could be transformational for the National Park if we could take even half of those ideas forward. Thank you.
Members, any questions? Yes, Jeremy, you caught my eye first.
Oops, not working.
Sorry?
It is working. First of all, can I thank Ben for coming to Paracombe and giving an explanation of it. Dan, sorry.
Just to make things clear.
Yes, sorry, Dan. I do apologise. Yes, thank you very much for coming to Paracombe and explaining to us, and the enthusiasm that you were, or for the scheme shown there, shows that this really needs to be taken on as it possibly can. I think it's a really good report, and thank you for presenting it.
Andrew.
Thank you, Dan. I'm there, said Ben, so welcome. And thank you very much to the report. Obviously, the consultants behind and drawn the report had funding for, which is great to get that sort of funding and get this up and running. And I know there's been initiative on Exmoor before, and I was involved in it. I'm a great fan of this area, active travel, and overall I think the report is very good. However, I do have concerns in a couple of areas which I find hard to support. I'll come on to that. I'd like to remind people of the advantage of active travel. I mean, firstly, improving physical health is really important. That's what it's about. Improving mental health and well-being, that's really important. And reducing car use on Exmoor, I think that they're all really good. And the economic benefit is excellent. The Peak District, for example, they have an initiative which was focused on cycling, and that was 7.5 million per year they brought to the economy. So there's real advantage. They've got the advantage they've got urban areas outside. So there's some great stuff in there. It talks about 4 areas, and then 11 themes, doesn't it? So I'll talk for a bit more about you did. One, which I'm very supportive of, existing networks. There's a lot of existing networks in Exmoor, and putting work into that. That probably needs funding, of course. Future networks, family friendly, and that refers to Brushwood to Doverton 1. Great support of that. And the Wootton Courtney most used trails, families, and I think that's very good. A lot of potential for that. That's off-road. And then the fourth one, the third one I have trouble with, the fourth one is the active travel welcome. And that's about the marketing and communications. And we can learn from the Peak District on that, we can learn from overseas, Mallorca, where creating a mindset change for drivers and the users. But the bit I struggle with, and this is the cyclist, I've probably cycled in the last month since I really started, 60 hours, over 700 miles on Exmoor lanes. So I feel like very well informed. I know Exmoor Cycle Club share my view on this. It just focus on traffic problems, traffic volumes, it says in here. And there's 2 quotes, and I think the consultants have been a little bit lazy. I say that as a consultant myself. They 2 quotes which have led them in a certain direction. It says, locations away from main roads where motor cars can cause congestion. Yes, of course they can. But the Exmoor I see, I don't see congestion on these side roads. I went for a ride last night. I went 20 miles on the side roads. I saw 3 cars when I left the A39. 3 cars. That's right above the top. So congestion is not the issue. Then the one which troubles me most is a quote here: traffic speeds discourage active travel on many of the roads outside the villages. I horse ride, I cycle. Over the last, when I've been cycling, speed is not an issue. It really isn't. What is an issue is drivers respecting cyclists, horse riders. And Exmoor generally is very good. I know people have been to Italy. Just recently, the chairman of the cycle club said actually that the behaviour in Exmoor is very good. So I think we remember that. So focusing on speed, I think one as a cyclist, I worry that we as cyclists will get blamed for saying, oh, you're all driving too fast. And also it misses the point. There's some very simple initiatives which wouldn't cost very much, which could encourage people to use the roads. So theme J, which is where I struggle with most, which is about addressing the speeds, I think that should be focused on encouraging people to use Exmoor lanes, which is basically what it's saying. But what they've done is jumped to the conclusion that what's stopping people using Exmoor lanes is speed. And I don't think it's not. Exmoor, my cycle club confirms that, and I don't see that. Reason that I think it distracts from a few simple initiatives which in Wootton Courtney we've started. One, and this is followed through in Mallorca where cycling is big, the Peak District project. First, I know this may not be properly defined, is vegetation control on roadsides. Cutting back the vegetation to improve sight lines. Massive difference. Last night I was cycling, there was some gorse sticking out, and it makes it dangerous. The number of roads, I drove on one this morning, Wootton Courtney, there's still enough space for a car and cyclists. So you've got to cut the hedges back to want to improve sight lines and actually create physical space. The second thing I think should be focused on is signage to change the mindset of drivers. Just nudge them a little bit, saying thank you much, you've given us plenty of space, the cyclists, horse riders. And that's not telling them, I think it's almost thanking them for doing it. And I think that wouldn't cost much. And also road surface improvements. Cutting Hill's fantastic now. But cycling last night in the back lanes, every so often you get a potter and you've got to pull out in front of a car, small costs. The vegetation control, the reason I picked up on that is to Wootton Courtney, we as a parish, we are going to pay, it's only £130 a year, we're going to pay the contractor to come along and just cut back a bit more on the hedges where the sight lines, and we're going to mark up where they are. This was done in the Peak District as well, and it's done in Mallorca to encourage cycling. So I think that that's a very practical thing, could happen quite quickly with consultation with parishes through the LCN meetings in Somerset and North Devon Council. And I think that's why I think speed is a distraction, and I think could cause friction between drivers and cyclists, seeing that we want the traffic to slow down. I'm very happy with the way it's starts behaving. So that's overall I think it's very good, but I just find trouble with theme J, and I don't want to be seen to supporting a report that talks about reducing speeds on Exmoor as a cyclist. So, yeah.
Dan.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Thank you for that. As you know, I almost entirely agree with all the points you made, and we talked about that at the briefing a while ago. The only counter thing I would say, a couple of things. One is that through the consultation, a lot of people did raise speed as an issue, and I know in reality it's not quite as simple as that.
No.
But it was raised quite frequently, in fact, by the people who responded to the survey. I would say as well that the action that's mentioned under theme J says investigate traffic speeds and issues across National Park and potential solutions, so it's quite broad. In reality, I don't think speed limit changes are going to be the outcome of that work. I doubt that they would be entirely helpful either. As you say, it's more really about safety and behaviour ultimately. Just changing speed limit is not going to achieve a lot other than annoy a lot of people, probably, in most locations. And some of those things, as you say, are quite affordable things. Some road surface improvements, maybe not, depends. So I think it's okay as it is, and it fits with your concerns. But I kind of agree with you that it is an area where the consultants have not spent a lot of time on it.
I think I was at one of the meetings where someone said speed is an issue, but it is a very easy thing to say and people think that. What I've talked to my cycle club about, and maybe the LCN, I'd have to do a detailed survey of what people think of encouraging. Because my cycle are very keen not to be seen to me, so I'm happy to do that. But I agree, investigating traffic speed is appropriate, but it should be alongside other measures. So that's where theme J is almost jumps to conclusion. It's saying speed's the problem. Where actually theme J should be, let's understand what the problem is really. Not just a few people at a meeting putting their hands up saying speed. How often do we hear at LCN meetings it's speed? And when you go back to the police, often it's not. So yeah, I hear what you're saying, but I still struggle with that traffic speeds on rural roads. It's jumped to conclusion, but we need to prove what the problem is, I think, first. And the consultants haven't really, wait a time, proved that properly. So,
I'd be happy to potentially change the wording a bit of that. It's going to get difficult to manage this with so many people, but that's definitely an option.
Right, got a few people now. Bill.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Dan. I can say I've not cycled anywhere in Exmoor for years. And I do drive quite a lot, and I agree with everything that Andrew said. What concerns me is that providing this isn't used in future as a vehicle to say that we at some stage thought it was a good idea to reduce speed limits, because I don't think we do, we don't know that we do. I think it'd be a mistake. I also quite agree, North Malton Parish spend nearly £3,000 a year on verge and hedge trimming on corners and verges where the county don't do it for visibility and safety. And we've done it for about 5 years now. It makes the roads a lot safer, particularly for horses, cyclists and pedestrians. So I think, I know there's an issue with trimming, but if you do it strategically and you're careful, I think it's something that anybody should bear in mind. So I'm afraid to save a lot of time, Sheldon, I agree with everything Andrew says. It's important that we don't use this as a base to go to somewhere that we didn't intend going. Thank you.
Thank you. There's quite a number of county councillors in the room, so I'm sure they're listening to all of this. Susan, you were next.
I won't go on further to make it down to speed, but I did want to make a point. I think obviously there's lots of different cyclists, people who would like to cycle, and obviously Andrew and his cycling club was really a good part of that sector, but that's not all the cyclists. And I have, family, friends, and myself, I would say I cycle, but I think speed can be, people who are less confident, who aren't proper road cyclists, that does affect them. So I think we do need to just be mindful that the cycling population is quite diverse. Perhaps people who like to cycle don't, people aren't as confident as others. I've developed schemes in other national parks to actually improve cycle confidence for those who aren't so sure about doing it. And speed is a factor for people. So I think we need to be a little bit careful about understanding the broader picture. I understand the bigger issue around the speed thing, but I do think we need to remember that, walkers, cyclists, we're not at one homogenous lot. There's lots of different people who do or don't cycle for different reasons and can be put off or encouraged through different mechanisms, which I think does lead well to my other point, which links with what Andrew was saying, which isn't it, it's in theme, K. I would like to see, because I was saying about this, and I can't help it because I spent 4 years doing research on behaviour change, so I apologise. But in theme K, we talk about welcoming and supporting measures. I think I would like to see it go slightly further in terms of, Andrew mentioned nudging, whether that's sort of, the social marketing or stuff to actually, support and encourage behaviour change. There's good examples from other national parks where they've done that in Loch Lomond and the Lake District, and I'd like to see it go a little. I think it would be remiss of us in the current world that we're in terms of active travel not to have something around behaviour change, social marketing or something, to just go a little bit more than just comms. That's actually putting out some big messages around behaviours. So just a simple like this, but it doesn't do anything grand, but just something that kind of will encourage and support, behaviour change, to, encourage whatever. But anyway, just I think we need to have that in there somewhere. Thank you.
Thank you.
Francis. Thank you, Madam Chairman. Yes, absolutely welcome it. Also, very much endorse what Andrew's been saying. And so would suggest that for those bits which are part of the road network, there is probably a lot of data out there already, which can be used it is relevant to think about this because there has recently, on the roads between Darlington and Brushford, though a question was raised vehemently at Parish Council in Brushford, traffic's going too fast. There had been a very difficult incident in which fortunately nobody was hurt, which was nothing to do with speed and everything to do with dangerous driving, of somebody overtaking in the face of an oncoming vehicle with somebody walking down the side of the road. Now, it wasn't actually a question of speed, it was a question of really dangerous driving. The result of this is that very careful look at speeds along that road has just been done, looking at whether there would be merit in increasing, adding speed limits there, where there isn't one, it's not in a built-up area. And the conclusion both of the police and highways is that actually speed's not the problem, people are not speeding along there. The problem is they're not noticing, and this I think brings up both your and Susan's point, the cyclists and walkers, rather than that they're going too fast. And so there is discussion of reminder signs to remind people that there are walkers and cyclists there. And so maybe that's the sort of thing. And I'm that we should add into the look. And I very much endorse the point that a lot of people say everybody goes too fast. Doesn't mean to say that the facts are on their side. Sometimes they are, sometimes they're not.
Thank you, Francis. Stephen, you're next.
Thank you very much. Again, I think what I'm hearing around the room is that everybody endorses the report, which we do, and thank Daniel very much for it.
And we thank Ben as well.
I'm sure Benjamin deserves his share of thanks as well. So that's fine. I think what there is a bit of concern about some of the granular detail, but I think Dan probably understands that and shares that. So, and let's be honest about it, I think what we're anxious about is not being seen somehow this morning to endorse some sort of call for a blanket lower speed limit, because the granular detail suggests that actually it's about driver behaviour rather than speed limits. We all know actually the police won't support speed limits being lowered unless their data will effectively allow any reduced speed limit to be pretty much self-enforcing. So we know that there are plenty of practical and legal problems attaching to that. Francis has just mentioned the Brushford to Dalton Road, the speed records for that. There are no accident records that can be found, at least for the last 5 years, and the average speed that the police have been detecting is anything from 35 to 45 miles an hour as the average speed on a no speed limit applied, national speed limit applies road. So in fact speeding there isn't the problem. There is something about driver behaviour, and they have suggested that there needs to be some drug awareness training going on locally. I'll park that one, so to speak. But that is a good example, and it is actually one of the routes that's specifically mentioned here, to which some attention has already been given, but there are other things I'm sure that can be done, and if we can draw in funding from elsewhere, because of course a lot of this is about drawing in that funding, isn't it? Doing that, I'm sure, will be helpful. But I think, as Andrew has quite rightly begun by saying, it's not really one of simplistic solutions. I think there are lots of individual ways in which we can make Exmoor an even more attractive place to walk, cycle, ride, and it won't necessarily be the obvious thing that would come to the mind to start with, which is, it's just a matter of reducing speed, because I don't really think it is that. But otherwise, overall, I'm sure we welcome the report, thank Dan for all his work, and hope that we will be levering in funding that will help us improve Exmoor and the experience even more so. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura.
Thank you. Yeah, great to see such a comprehensive focus on active travel. I just wondered if it's worth making it a bit more explicit. One of the benefits is attracting diverse audiences, like young people who can't drive yet, families that can't afford cars. When I helped bring Wanderlust Women here, the fact that the public transport stops at Taunton was a massive issue for a lot of them, and we had to Charlotte the Ranger put on a minibus in the end to do that. But I think if we could make that a bit more explicit in here, that that's a benefit and that would bring more people into the park, and then perhaps think about a bit more creatively about the ways we do that. So with Campaign for National Parks, I worked with a young woman called Erica in Dartmoor who developed a walking leaflet of trails you could do from the public transport points, that she then took out to engage families in Exeter and the sort of cities surrounding with that. So that was quite a nice way. So from what Susan was saying, there's lots of stuff in other national parks that we could probably learn from and perhaps put in here as an example, or a bit of a nod to, of things that could work in Exmoor as well. So, but overall, it's comprehensive. It's great to see lots of stuff.
Good suggestions there, thank you. Mike.
Thank you, Chairman. Having recently attended a speed awareness course, I'm not actually going to speak about it.
You want to?
Fascinated by the details, thank you. I think my only point really is a contextual point, in terms that it's really good what's being said. We are saying similar things in our local plan, although we refer to sustainable travel. And I think it would be quite useful to cross-refer to what we're saying in the local plan. We now have several policies relating to sustainable travel, so we ought to do that. And there is another question, I guess, which is raised: should we be talking about active travel in the local plan? So it's just trying to get the cross-relationship between what we're trying to do, because decisions are made, as we know, in terms of the planning agenda. So if it's cross-referred to and we can refer to the active travel plan, I think it's going to reinforce some of the messages. And again, when we come to review the local plan, we might start looking, Susan's point is well taken, about sustainable travel behaviours, which is really at the centre of all this, rather than physical measures. So it's an informed looking at this. We can use this active travel plan to inform other corporate documents, maybe even corporate strategy, of course. So, but let's try and make sure that we are saying the same messages throughout the documents that we are, progressing ourselves. Just that kind of thing.
Thank you. Marcus.
Thank you. I think the last few speakers probably just said what I want to say. I think the only thing that hasn't been said, talking about driver behaviour, actually drivability as well. I think that I should redo. I was also at Parish Council. I was told to read the route. I mentioned something. I drove up this morning. It now takes me 5 minutes longer than it used to, just because my driving gets worse on a daily basis. I can admit it. It's just scary. And one of the questions on the speed limit was, when I spoke to somebody who recently had a 30 outside their house turned into a 20, I said, what difference has it made? He said, well, at least now everyone's doing 30. until the police enforced it one weekend, and now everyone's doing 15. So there is that, but I think the one thing that hasn't been mentioned yet, and I think Andrew mentioned about not being there traffic, one of the things, and of course the main issue, although it's mentioned in this report, is it's not actually in the park, is that you don't necessarily want to be riding along a cycle path with your family with cars going past at 60 miles an hour, or sometimes a lot more, because what might be a 60 mile an hour road might actually be an 80 mile an hour road in reality. So there is always that to look at. Should there be an alternative route, so you don't have to feel like you're on a major A road with cars and lorries and everything going past you. So I think that's the only thing I'd add to what else has been said by the previous speakers. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Mandy?
Thank you. Just a couple of points. I couldn't see any mention of At West in this, and they do quite a lot of transport across when they're talking about transport, and they do have a local service as well. I couldn't see that referred to in the report, but obviously it's there. Several things. Agree with the previous readers. I think roads as they are have probably got room for all users. And for me, it's just a bit of signposting. I really like the Quiet Roads initiative, where you could have quiet roads where it's signed and reminding people that there might be cyclists, walkers, horses on the road. But a lot of it is around, I'm afraid, driver ability and driving at the right speed and at the right place on the road. Don't like advanced driving, as you said, but if you learn to look at your corners and what's coming, you know what speed you can go around it safely, you know how you can get the maximum vision. So I think there is something about everybody being respectful. And the other thing for me, there's always this contention between car drivers, cyclists, walkers, horse riders, and I just wish as a society we could sort of get over that and be considerate of all, because I think the infrastructure is there right across the country, and it's just about, like I said, how everybody uses the road. The last thing which I have picked up previously is around prioritising. There's a huge programme here you could go down. I don't know which are the bits that, if funding came up, we would probably look to follow. And lastly, just connecting in with our plan, are there some small quick wins there that as an authority next year and the year after, we might want to consider being part of our work to start us on that route. And I think if you're going for funding, if you can demonstrate, one, you're committed to it, and two, that you have some plans in place to start to make some small changes, I think that's always good to see. Thank you.
Thank you. And finally, Robin.
Thank you, Andrew. No, that's right. Well, first of all, I think it's quite easy to underestimate the huge amount of work and time that's gone into this. There's an awful lot covered here. And I think it's pretty evident from this, there's an awful lot covered which puts a framework in place, but which we have a total inability to deliver. But that framework is important in our discussions with funders in the future, with any of the work that we do, with the external organisations that are responsible for an awful lot of the road networks. So, absolutely, I endorse what you've got on there. I think you could have a discussion for weeks around the finer points of what you've got in there. I think having that framework in place is probably the most important part of all, and give us a basis for discussion and somewhere to work from. And, probably more, an understanding of the fact of the situation of what travelling in a national park is all about, what it means, what it actually means to even get here to start with. As I've found with so many people say, I'll come down and see you. I'll get a taxi from the train. Yeah. You think, yeah, great, it might cost you more than you think. But those are the kind of bits that nobody actually thinks of, initially. So I'd like to move the recommendation down, and thank you for all your work and time you put into this.
Seconded, Madam Chair.
Oh, goodness me. Everybody seems very good today. Thank you.
Can I come back on one?
Jeremy, of course, yes.
Sorry to prolong this, but I would we've all sort of gone against the speed bit, but please look at point I, which is tackling main road severance. And if you have tried to walk across the A39 at Paracoon, or in the Porlock Vale, or at Hillsford Bridge, or in various other places, speed is the problem there. So please don't throw that particular baby out with the bathwater. That it is a very important point for local confidence and everything like that. Sorry to labour the point, but it has to be said.
Well, as your county councillor, I'm going to agree with you and say the reason that I drive to catch the bus, which is just over a mile, is because I'm frankly too frightened to get my bike out or walk up there. So that just, and that is actually down to speed. I am too frightened to do that. So therefore, what will happen in the future, should I not be able to drive, if I come to the firm, I'm stuck in my house because the public transport requires me to go on the road that I find too scary to even concentrate walking on. And even 20 years ago, I was saying. So it's not like it's as I got older, but more scared. It has always been there, and I've never let my children do that. So that just shows you how we get cut off as people, and it's just a simple thing like, if it was safer, then we'd all use it. Anyway, I'm rambling on now. It's been proposed and seconded, all those in favour? That's unanimous.
And can we add our congratulations to Dan for the work?
Yeah, absolutely.
And my apologies again for the misnaming.
Sorry, I'll start again. We weren't unanimous, so all those in favour, sorry, can we show hands? Anybody against? Abstentions. Oh, 2 abstentions. Thank you. Right, item 10. I'm so pleased to see this item. Stephen, Chairman of Planning Committee. Planning Committee substitutes, which is a little mess that we've got ourselves in today. This one. Ben, you might be called down.
Thank you, Chairman. Good morning, members. So as a shared report with our monitoring officer, Andrew. This report seeks to formalise, in a revision to standing orders, the reduction in the time period required to nominate a planning committee substitute. Previously, we had 10 days following the amendments to the planning committee back in November 2023. Standing committee resolved, and that's why it's been presented to yourself as authority, the reduction down to 3 days. That's pretty much all the report seeks to do, is that formalisation of standing orders for that amount. So I open that to the floor to members.
Thank you. Well, we all know what it's about. Anybody need to discuss anything? Andrew, don't bring cycling into it.
No. I need more than 10 days. I'd like to propose a measure and actually say I got caught out by the 10 days. Had the email from Carol one day and suddenly realised things had changed for me. I couldn't make a meeting. So I asked Mike to stand in for me, and because it was like 9 days, 9 working days as well, Mike couldn't stand in for me. Things change. My next planning meeting, I should be able to make it, but something changed last minute. So that's why I support it, post that we vote for.
You can second it. Oh, Stephen.
I'm very happy to second it, obviously. The thing I would like to draw everyone's attention to is on page 2, paragraph up from the bottom. I think the expectation is that we do try to get substitutes from within our same overall groups, but it's not an absolute essential. As far as I'm aware, standing orders do not preclude you getting somebody from another group to represent, as long as there is the proper balance within the committee overall, which is relatively straightforward. So it's a bit more flexible as well than it might otherwise have just been.
I think that's helpful, thank you. Any other comments? Evelyn.
Thanks, Chairman. As a member of the Planning Committee who had to miss the last one through illness, illness quite often happens closer to the date of the meeting.
Yeah.
You can't predict what's going to happen, so I would welcome this.
And of course, sorry, Madam Chairman, if there is a sudden need to substitute because of a very pressing reason, that's still allowed for.
Thank you. Marcus.
Well, I think that's probably just answered the question actually. The only question I was 3 working days, so that would mean, I'll just get it straight in my head, would mean you'd need to know by the Thursday evening, or is it the Wednesday. So it's almost because it is, believe it or not, it is almost a week before the meeting. And yeah, I think I'd be pushing it, fighting it if the tide is. But 3 days still sometimes seems, 3 working days is a week practically in reality. We're actually, not that I'd be able to jump in at the last minute for a meeting, but if it's 3 days, then so be it. But it's a shame it's not 2. Obviously, this has got. My question was why 3. I think is my question.
Do you know I'm going to be really controversial here, and the monitoring officer will probably say, I wish you hadn't said that. But it doesn't actually tell us what exceptional circumstances are. Can I just leave that floating around and we all just use our imaginations? Mike?
Yes, thank you, Chair. As Deputy Chair, I think it's a very sensible recommendation. I'm happy to support it.
Brilliant. The monitoring officer can say it.
Standing orders do say due to emergency or sudden illness. Doesn't say what the emergency is.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But then I'm left a bit floaty there. It's sort of all just say, you know, it could be anything. Most things are exceptional. Nobody plans to be ill. Is where I put it. John.
Yeah, I agree. At the Sentence Committee, I thought there shouldn't really be a need for 3 days. I mean, it works in effect in other places where there isn't any particular time limit, just so that it actually works, as long as it's sufficient time for the member to familiarise themselves with the papers and get up to speed with everything. But nevertheless, that's what the Standing Committee agreed, so I'll go with it, and I'll second Andrew's move.
Brilliant. Anybody else want to say anything? Right, all those in favour? Anybody against? Any abstentions? That's unanimous. Okay, it's the annual let's go through the list thing. And those that have been here before know that my heart sinks when we get to it. I think once we did it in 10 minutes. So, we have a list. It is in front of you. You were all asked what you want to do except Richard, who wasn't appointed at the time. So I'm going to go down the list, and then you're going to say whether you're happy or not. Is that okay? Right. Final accounts committee, we've got enough people who said they want to do it. They're not going over it. That's fine. Agreed? Nobody's changed their mind. Good. Planning committee, the vacancies from Devon County Council, fortunately there's just 2 of us, and Richard volunteered valiantly to go on to the planning committee. Everybody happy with that? But I believe there's one change we're expecting from Somerset members. Christine, I think you wanted to come off the planning committee.
Sorry?
Did you want to come off the planning committee?
I would be happy to, or be happy to stay if you need me. It's entirely up to you.
Is there another Somerset member that would like to take it on?
I could do it.
Yeah, you're happy to do it?
Yeah.
Brilliant. Are we all happy with that?
Thank you.
Good. Right. Problem number 1. The Standards Committee, which is set at 5 members. We've got 70 volunteers. Bill?
Chairman, I'm happy to withdraw my name.
Excellent. Well volunteered. Who else is going to volunteer to step down then?
Chairman, I would, but you wouldn't then have a secretary of state.
No.
I can.
It needs to be a Somerset person.
I'll be equally helpful.
Thank you. Theo, you're brilliant. That's twice you've been helpful. Exmoor Local Access Forum, that's fine. Exmoor National Park Forum, that's fine. Partnership Sports and Working Groups, that's fine. Exmoor Learning and Engagement Network. To be honest, I'm just going to leave that because it's up to us. It's not one of our committees, so if we've got an extra member on it, I'm very happy, unless somebody wants to step off it.
I'm happy to not.
Oh, Laura's happy to come off. Oh, brilliant. Exmoor Moor and Farming Board. I did actually ask Bill if he'd do this. The farmer. So he might know what we're talking about.
I said yes, Chair, didn't I?
He did say yes.
In the unlikely event we got re-elected as Chair.
So Bill's volunteered for that. Well, he didn't volunteer election, but yeah. Exmoor Nature Conservation Advisory Panel, that's okay. Exmoor Woodland and Forestry Advisory Group, that's okay. Equality, Diversity and Inclusion Group, it doesn't matter if we've got more members, as long as everybody's happy that's on it. I used to be on it.
Can I note that like that? Nearly all Secretary of State.
Yeah. Except for Theo, who voted
Theo. Thank you, Theo.
But again, I'd be happy, Chairman, to stand by someone else from the wider grouping.
Is there somebody else? It would be nice if there was somebody from a local authority or parish member who went on, I think.
Yeah, I'll do it.
Oh, thanks, John.
Thanks.
External Funding Working Group, FIPL, all well volunteered, and that's why I want to say. Planning Policy and Working Group.
Yeah, we think it's just one more year.
I know we do. Richard now picked up that this is probably not something to volunteer for.
Great.
It's a lot of reading. Planning Policy Advisory Group, Rural Enterprise Exmoor Group. Have we ever met there? I can't remember.
So busy. Yeah.
Oh, it's Andrew. Andrew, yes, you're there. Something. National Parks Chairs Forum, Campaign for National Parks, Laura's happy to carry on. Exmoor Farming Network, Mike's happy to carry on. Exmoor Landscape Advisory Group, Michael Marcus. Exmoor Rural Housing Network, same as last year. AONB.
Sorry, Chairman, on AONB, can I just mention, it hasn't been called AONB for about 2 years.
I know, it's my
the North Devon Coast National Landscape, and as the National Park Authority, we really should know that.
Yeah, I should know it too.
It's got new branding and everything, it's really good. So I encourage you all to visit the North Devon Coast National Landscape. And the National Surfing Reserve, of course, one of them, very few around the world, National Surfing Reserve.
Excellent. No, that's not in the National Park.
Which is in the National Park.
It is an inland one, yeah.
Team Devon, that's me anyway. Visit Exmoor, Laura's happy to continue, and then we have our 2 independent persons. Are we all happy? Yes, that was amazing. So, we need a proposal, please. John, no, John, stand.
We're fighting here.
Mark, could you have a second? All those in favour? Anybody against? Any abstentions? That was absolutely amazing.
Good sharing.
Well, I don't know about that. I think it just really helped our people. Personal update, we welcome Joshua, who's a field service and 6 worker, he's on a 2 weeks. He's on a 2-year 6th term, hopefully very happy working for us. And then item 13, members report, I've been advised that Robin has something to say.
Well, just a couple attended there, and one of them was the Exmoor Young Voices and the Benton Dalberton for their King's Award for, I can't remember the rest of it. Voluntary service. Yeah, quite well. It was well attended and really good to see the group of young people there that and their concerns around Exmoor. So Stephen could probably elaborate a little more if he'd like to in a second.
Well, and indeed that's good, Francis, because all 3 of us were there, weren't we? I think the Deputy Chairman is absolutely right to raise it, because the Exmoor Young Voices, of course, was a body that the National Park was instrumental in having set up, and now its work has been recognised by what is effectively the MBE for voluntary service organisations. So we had the full panoply of the Lord Lieutenant and one of the Deputy Lord Lieutenants and the High Sheriff, all in their uniforms, so we were well flounced that morning. There were a series of very interesting presentations, one of which was from Josh Smith and Megan Hunt, who you will remember are the young couple self-building a house in Winsford, because that's been one of the houses that we've really taken as an exemplar of how to do self-building for young people. And in their presentation, they were very praising of the authority and the help that they'd had from the planning department, particularly Joe White, and I think that that was a very positive thing to be hearing. The National Park was praised for the work and support that they had given to the Young Voices and the work that they were doing, and I think it was noted by all of the people that were visiting that particular presentation, so it was a very positive experience.
Yes. And if I might add, absolutely also that Robin and Stephen said. Two things. One, the Lord Lieutenant, the Deputy Lord Lieutenant and the High Sheriff stayed for 3 hours, which meant that they were paying proper attention, and they had they had private conversations with the Young Voices as well as the public one. And in conversation with the Lord Lieutenant after the presentations, he told me that one of the reasons for the presentation to this group of young people is that they had not sat there saying this is all wrong. They had sat there saying how do we address this?
Thanks. No, highlighted to me, a huge amount of time some young people put into representing their communities. I think we ought to be grateful for that and the links it provides with us and for us as well to foster those links. The second one I did attend was the Exmoor Society Conference, again, which one or two others were here. I must admit it was probably the best series of presentations I have ever sat through at an Exmoor Society Conference. I shall never look at the rivers of Exmoor quite the same way, particularly the journey of an Atlantic salmon in the same way again. But it did highlight, to me, the fact the multiplicity of issues around the water and the rivers and that marine wildlife that's in there. We don't know enough about it, and I don't think we're good enough at protecting it. And I think sometimes we deal with what we see rather than understanding a little deeper. And I think it was a really interesting presentation. So I'd just like to highlight that one as well.
Andrew.
Can I to the Exmoor Society, do you mind if I elaborate on that? No, it was a very good conference, first one I've been to. Great conference, a great location in Winchester, of course, where I was born. They had 3 professors there, one from York University, one from Oxford, and one from Exeter. And so the knowledge there was great. The first person who spoke was Professor Charles Foster, and the way he talked about the life of the salmon going down through the River Ex was amazing. I can remember from a very child seeing salmon in the river, and there are fewer salmon in the river now. He's talked through the whole life cycle going down through the River Ex, and then actually going up to Norwegian coastline for their training, Spartacus training he called it, where they actually go and train and learn. And then they come back up to the River Ex. It was quite amazing, the same salmon, and then they spawn or mate, and that's it, they die. I hadn't realised that. About 5% survive, but most of them die. So he was so articulate when he was talking through and pointing out the challenges and what the pollution factors can be. And then Alistair Boxall from York University talked through the big thing, which I think we talked about before, or touched on, is pharmaceutical pollution in the River Ex, particularly export. And it's one of the highest in the country, bizarre enough. But there are some factors for that, of course. Only in the summer, not in the winter, it's not an issue. Talk that through in terms of and I wondered if it was drugs being flushed down the toilet, but it's not that. These things actually we digest and then goes out through urine. So it is a problem, but there were no solutions discussed. Actually, I realised the effect on that. I think that's what the pharmaceutical industry addressed. Then the other discussion with Dieter Helm was very good, and he talked about sort of pollution, what we can do about it in the river. And his view was very much the polluter should pay. That doesn't mean the farmer should pay, it means the people that buy the food off the farmers through the system should pay. And I thought that was very good in terms of making sure we pay the farmers not to pollute the rivers. We pay them not to spray up to the river, and recognise that, and I thought that was a very good point. And technology allows us to look in live data and see where the pollution is. So I thought it was very practical. So I thought it was excellent. And some influential speakers there. I also found out that Boris Johnson did go to Winterwood School with me at the time. So Johnny Johnson.
So something rubbed off.
What's that?
Mike.
I did attend, and it was an excellent conference, so thank you for the opportunity. The only report I wanted to mention. I should have mentioned it before to the authority, and my apologies. The Exmoor Landscape Advisory Group, we did meet recently to prepare a response to something called the Land Use Framework. DEFRA, the timescales were very limited, but 4 of us met, and I took it on myself to take on the responsibility of preparing a response, which we have done, and it's now been submitted. I think the Exmoor Society may be promoting that further. So, you know, in terms of that particular group, we do some work, and it has resulted in an outcome which has gone back to government, and we'll see what happens next. So I just wanted to report that, Chairman.
That's really helpful. Okay, I have no other hands raised from any members, so therefore, just before we finish, I close the meeting.